Hello everyone, welcome to Imprint IS. I'm Varun Khuller, and today we'll be discussing the UPSC General Studies Paper 2, the governance part, right? And in the governance part, in this year we got three questions worth 35 marks. But in the previous years, from 2015 to 17, around six questions used to come every year from the governance part. But initially, yes, in 2013 to 14, we had questions, worth 40 and 37 marks. So as you can see here. So governance was a very important portion in the 15 to 17 papers. But this year, only three questions have come, and let's have a look at those three questions, right? So the first question was e-governance is not only about utilization of the power of new technology, but also about critical importance of the use value of information. Explain. So first is that in this question, the first keyword is e-governance, and you need to define that. Then you have to talk about what is the power of new technology and how it has made governance faster. And that's the second portion. You can emphasize on that in the second paragraph. Then you talk about the critical importance that the fact is, at the end of the day, it's the information that is being given through e-governance. It is not the technology which we need to focus on. At the end of the day, it is the content which matters, not the app, right? Okay. For example, could be even if you look at various educational, videos, you can feel the fact that the technology they're using is good, but sometimes the content is not up to mark, right? Okay. Now, in this, let's define it. So, e-governance is in a sense the application of information and communication technology to government functioning in order to make it smart. That is, simple, moral, accountable, responsive, and transparent. A single window system kind of a system. Simple, moral, obviously, right? It should be positive. It should be giving justice to the people. Accountable. There should be easy methods of grievance response. Responsive should be quick and transparent. Yeah? It should be done in a very transparent manner. People should be able to access the information they are looking for quickly. So ICT, that is Information Communication Technology, facilitates efficient storing and retrieval of data, instantaneous transmission of information, processing of information, which is much faster than manual systems, definitely, right? It's Excel sheet obviously is faster method of calculating, right? What used to happen now, manually before. Speeding up governmental processes, taking decisions expeditiously and judiciously, increasing transparency and enforcing accountability. That things have become more and more transparent, right? And people have become more accountable. It also helps to increase the reach of government. Now, geographically also and demographically also. Now, geographically, right, people from all over the state, even if let's say I'm in a hilly area in Himachal, I can access the government app and get quick access to services, let's say land records, etc. On the other hand, demographically also, it doesn't matter if I'm 80 years of age, I can just log in and typically just pay my bill, right? Let's say I'm paying my e-Sampark through e-Sampark online portal, I'm paying my electricity bill. Now, e-governance has to be comprehensive. Mere introduction of IT component is not an end. Okay. Introduction of e-governance needs process engineering in the first step, because if processes and procedures are not re-engineered, it doesn't make the government compatible, right? So e-governance projects cannot succeed. Now, technology and the hardware and software only come second, only after the processes have been re-engineered. Now, ultimately, to make reforms sustainable, the people in the concerned department agencies have to internalize the changes. They have to accept it. There has to be an attitudinal change. Okay, that's the most important part, I would say. If the attitude of the workers, that is the government employees, doesn't change, e-governance projects are bound to fail. So in the pilot level, people are excited, they change things, but after they're upscaled, they become unsustainable because of the fact that the attitude of the government system has not changed. Now, digital literacy. To prepare for the wave of digital transformation to e-governance, building infrastructure skills is necessary, and creating digital infrastructure is very necessary. So we have the NOFN, right, for this. And also we have missions on digital literacy and general literacy, e-literacy, that is. Building a congenial environment also is a sine qua non. That is very, very important, without which e-governance initiatives cannot work out. Okay. Now, creating a display, a will to change the government, providing political support and administrative support, especially at the lower levels of bureaucracy, because it's a lower level of bureaucracy which is supposed to work with the cutting edge bureaucracy, and they have to be incentivized. And obviously there has to be a constant attitudinal training, and trainings should be done again and again. Creating awareness, obviously, with the public in a view to generate demand. There has to be an information, educational, and communication campaign run by the government. Okay, that was about that question. Let's look at the next one. Citizen Charter is an ideal instrument of organizational transparency and accountability, but it has its own limitation, right? Identify the limitation and generate measures for greater effectiveness of Citizen Charter. Now, when you look into a question like this, I would suggest that you should go through our notes. We have put our governance notes online on Imprint IAS. Normally what I in my classes I talk about the fact that we need a quote, because in Citizen Charter you should always use a quote. So there are two quotes which I really like. One is by Mahatma Gandhi and other is by Jawaharlal Nehru. So the Mahatma Gandhi quote is, "A customer is the most important visitor on your premise. He is not dependent on us. We are not dependent on him. He is not an interruption in our work. He is the purpose of it. He is not an outsider in our business. He is a part of it." So that basically, Citizen Charter basically is customer centricity, the focus on the citizen, right? And the other is Jawaharlal Nehru's quote, citizen-centric administration. It says that administration is not meant to achieve something, and not to exist in some kind of ivory tower, which basically is the criticism of the bureaucracy in India. Following certain rules of procedure and narcissistic-like, looking on itself with complete satisfaction. The test is, after all, the human beings and their welfare. So the idea behind Citizen Charter is the welfare of people, right? In this question, the first is you would like to define Citizen Charter, talk about how it increases organizational transparency and accountability. It should talk about its limitations, and you have to identify them and suggest measures for greater effectiveness, right? So let's look at the answer. So Citizen Charter is a basic set of commitments made by an organization regarding the standards of service which it delivers. The Citizen Charter is an instrument which seeks to make an organization transparent, accountable, and friendly. For example, let's take the example of SBI. And SBI, if you go to SBI branch, the Citizen Charter is in front of you normally, right? Is displayed to all. The customer can see at how much time does it take to make a draft, how much time would it take to deposit a certain amount of money, right? To clear a check, etc. So that is basically the kind of so standards of service which it delivers. So basically it tells you in this much amount of time your service will be delivered, right? So this is in SBI. Again, it's there in income tax department as well, and every government department has its Citizen Charter, right? But there is a criticism, certain departments, it's not that well implemented. So what does it do? It empowers the citizen in demanding committed standards of service, makes administration accountable, citizen friendly. It facilitates good governance, makes grievance redressal process easy and transparent. So let's say you paid some taxes and you paid extra tax and you're asking for a refund from the income tax. So basically the income tax department has a Citizen Charter which says that yes, I will return your money in 2 months time, right, from the filing of the return, and if not, I will pay this much amount of interest for the extra days. So basically it makes a grievance written. It also works in the ombudsman, right? Amount of time in case you have complained about something, how much time? To 30 days normally they say. Again, adds to the commitment and performance level of the organization, because now you're committed that yes, we will do this. Okay, it empowers the citizen with the right information and promise of best services, and obviously an inbuilt grievance redressal machinery. It adds to the administrative efficiency as well. Then what are the limitations? Obviously, it's a poor, in India especially, there's a story in Odisha that there was a poor design and there's hardly any content. Like the FAQ only has a description about what the department does, right, in Odisha. So that's the criticism. Then critical information that end users need to hold agencies accountable are missing from a large number of charters. Then inadequate groundwork. Government agencies of often formulate citizen charter without taking enough adequate groundwork. What kind of, so I've made an FAQ for my department, but I have not really asked people what they're looking for, right? What they normally come with, what kind of queries they normally come with. Charters are really updated. That's one of the biggest problems. You definitely need a yearly update. Okay, so they're not updated. So the same document is still there, right, from a decade ago. Then measurable standards of delivery are really spelled out in the charters, as the standards of delivery are seldom defined. It becomes difficult to assess whether the desired level of service has been achieved or not. Then standard service, even when they're spelled out, there's no way that they are actually to ensure that yes, they would actually be adhered to. There's no compensation. Let's say the railways, for example, in India doesn't have a clear kind of a compensation mechanism. If the train gets late, they don't compensate us, right? In comparison, if you look into Germany, right, if a train even gets late for a certain amount of time, let's say 10-15 seconds, there is a compensation paid. And it's clearly mentioned, okay, there's a tendency to have a uniform charter for all offices under the parent organization, and this basically overlooks the local issues also. So that is, they basically, as I said, it's totally, at the top they make a citizen charter, right? But after that, they don't really talk about it. Most of the charters are verbose and reflects the aspirations of the organization. It is not a very clear vision mission statement, okay? End users and NGOs are hardly consulted when they're drafted. Civil society organization and end users are not consulted. And the basic idea is of a citizen charter is to make it public centric. So at the end of the day, actually, the government should not even actually try to make it. They should actually say that people should tell them what kind of citizen charter they should be having. Okay, then there's a resistance to change in the attitude of the behavior of the citizens. And basically, the vested interests normally work for the stalling of citizen charter to make it toothless. Then you should mention the second part, that is what kind of things you can do. So recommendations are citizen charter should be clearly spelled out, remedy, penalty and compensation. And in case there is a default, standard should be spelled out, what will happen. Then which organization, before the organization makes the charter, it should restructure the internal system and processes. It should consult all stakeholders, including the civil society, NGOs, etc. It should realize that one chart size does not fit all. So, SBI Delhi should not have the same charter as SBI Gorakhpur, right? Then firm commitments should be made. Then organization should evaluate citizen charter periodically, hold officers, accountable for results, provide bonus for employees if services of customers are reached within time. Then you can actually make this diagram, right? What does it lead to? So citizen charter leads to citizen empowerment, redress, satisfaction and capacity enhancement. So it does all things. It allows for service delivery capability increase. It allows for public grievances, and it obviously empowers the citizen. He feels confident now, yes, that he feels that he's a part of the government. Okay, I'll also try to put an answer, and you can definitely go through our notes. I'll put in the link in the description as well. Okay, now a much more difficult question than the first two. So e-governance, citizen charter are easy questions, right? Both of them. So the next is policy contradictions among various competing sectors and stakeholders have resulted in inadequate protection and prevention of degradation to environment. Comment with relevant illustration. So what's happening now? Policy concept. So competing sectors and stakeholders, right? So if you think about it, there are many examples. Let's look at these. So the most famous example is the Sterlite case this year, right? Okay, and in this, the Sterlite Copper, a Vedanta Group company in Tuticorin, right? In May 22, there were firings in Tuticorin, and it basically tells you something. It tells you that there's policy contradictions among competing sector and stakeholders. So the police, the Vedanta, the government, the people have different agendas, right? The government policy to encourage industries, okay, it wants more and more industries to come to Tamil Nadu. On the other hand, the stakeholder, that is the people living in that area, feels that their water sources are being contaminated and they have Sterlite symptoms, right? And is leading to degradation of environment. This basically is creating a huge issue. Okay. Now, environmental protection and development has thought to be a zero-sum game in India, okay, and all across the world. It is assumed that the development of the country and increase in per capita income can only occur if the environment is destroyed. Policy contradiction is seen in many areas, like national water policy, where water, which is fundamental to livelihood, food security, and sustainable development, but on the other hand, it is being privatized. Same issues. Now, in this case, we are talking about environmental degradation. So, let's take the example of this, the Taj Mahal as well. So again, people, now the Supreme Court is coming into play, right? Supreme Court is saying that yes, we need to do something about, Taj Mahal. Okay, so pollution and newer pollutants in the Yamuna have aggravated the problems of the Taj Mahal turning yellow. Now that is again a big issue. Okay, then check out how the MNCs and the government in Tamil Nadu, right, has now, in this article itself, it talks about the fact that civil society really needs to do something. Otherwise, what will happen is that policy contradictions, right, would result in inadequate protection. So, very simply, why is this happening? So, there's a qualitative difference in the state withdrawing from the social sector as opposed from the economic sector. And in the increased privatization of private commodities as opposed to a rightly owned common property like water, like education, like healthcare, right? The problem is that MNCs have their own stakeholders who lobby from them. And the people in the, living the area have theirs. But the Mother Earth has no one. And hence the bargaining power of the environment is not much when we face with the MNCs. So that is a huge issue. Okay, so when you talk about, so if I was writing this answer, so what would I really go into? I would basically look at what are the competing sectors, what are the sectors, okay, right? So look at manufacturing, let's look at agriculture, let's look at, the services sector. So agriculture sector, right, they burn. So let's say, take the example of, stubble burning, okay? And they need to burn stubble so that, obviously they really can't process so much. It's too costly. So they just burn the land. Okay. After the harvesting of crop, they they burn the area. And obviously what does this happen? So that wind, basically the winds in winter, they basically the fog, the smog reaches Delhi, and Delhi becomes impossible for people in Delhi to really breathe. Okay. So basically what has happened is that there is policy contradiction. So on the other hand, I want to burn my crop because it's cheaper for me, it's faster for me. My stake is different, right? I don't care what people in Delhi really face. I really don't believe that what you're telling me that due to my burning of crops that this is happening to me, this to happen to people in Delhi, that is. So it is leading to degradation, right? And obviously agriculture, people in agriculture, right, they have different stakes, right? They have different thought processes. On the other hand, people living in Delhi have different thought processes. Okay, so that is another thing, right? So that obviously leads to degradation of environment. Okay, so maybe these two examples, the Tuticorin's case and the stubble air pollution case is one. Then obviously the water pollution case, you can talk about Yamuna, Ganga, still not being clean, despite the fact it's been so long that this has been happening, right? Okay, so you can talk about Ganga, you can talk about Yamuna, the water pollution, you can talk about air pollution, right? And we all talked about the overall pollution, which basically due to industries. Okay, so I think these three examples would be good enough to fetch good marks, right? Okay, if you have any questions, do ask us. Right, do subscribe our channel. Please write these three answers and send them across for checking. Right, we will give you detailed comments on whatever you basically come up with. Thank you so much.